What have you done for us lately? That's a question I like to ask our representatives, our elected officials, whether they're a city council member or a mayor or a state assembly member, all three of which I have here today. Eduardo Garcia, you were elected to Coachella City Council in
2004.
And then you served until
2014.
When you were elected mayor.
I was elected mayor in 2006, which was the first election the city would hold for its directly elected mayor.
Okay.
And so I was elected in 2006 and re-elected several times after that before departing and taking on this new role as a state legislator for this area.
So you really have been, you've been born and raised in Coachella. This is your home. This is your district. This is what you do. You represent us. So let me put a little picture up here. You have a very big district.
We do.
Huge. It goes from Desert Hot Springs to the northwest, Blythe to the east. Mm-hmm. Where do you go to the south? All the way to the Mexican border?
All the way to the Mexican border, the exciting city of Calexico, California.
And you basically hug the Colorado River.
That's correct.
How do you do that? I mean, you have an office here in Coachella. You have an office
in Imperial. We hold office hours in Blythe. In fact, we were out there this week. We also hold office hours in Desert Hot Springs and Cathedral City. We believe that it's important for our office and myself to be as available and as accessible as we possibly can when we are in the district, which is Thursday through Sunday, knowing that Monday through Thursday we are in Sacramento working on legislation.
Yeah, well, besides spending our money, what have you done for us lately?
Well, let me tell you, you mentioned this is home. This is where we were born and raised, and certainly where we participated in local government decision making. For me, it's an important opportunity to take some of the issues that we worked on here at the city, such as economic development opportunities, job creation, and take some of our ideas, some of our challenges, and try to legislate those problems. One of the things that we've been focused on is how is the state of California's business climate working or not in places that are economically distressed or disadvantaged.
How is it working for us here in Coachella?
Well, it's not. And so what we've done is we have a series of pieces of legislation as well as oversight hearings where we've brought in the Office of Economic Development under the governor's umbrella, and we're asking them, where are you making these investments? Where are these tax credit programs going? Where are these small business loans going? And for some, it's a redundant series of questions where we know the answers to, but it's important for us.
And the answers are?
Not here.
Not here.
Exactly.
And why not?
Exactly. We are documenting this for the purpose of then beginning to craft legislation that will direct them.
So you have to pass a law. They call it a bill. I don't know why they call it a bill. It's a law. You suggest a law that tells the state assembly, your fellow members, mm-hmm. Hey, you've got this money, we need some of it, bring it back.
That's right. That's right. And that's the simple way of explaining exactly what we're trying to accomplish when it comes to economic development investments. And here's the deal, is we want to make sure that as we talk about a post-recession economy in California and unemployment numbers decreasing, that these communities of California who continue to see themselves in a recession mm-hmm. are made a priority. California should not accept the fact that you've got some areas of the state with unemployment levels that go up to 21%, Colusa County being one.
And also, I believe, Imperial County, where you represent.
Imperial County, 18%.
18%. What do you do? I mean, how do you get business to come into your district? I mean, I'm here now, and we'll talk about that. I mean, I'm here to create jobs. Yeah. How do you get a business to come to your district, be it here in the Coachella Valley or in the Imperial Valley or in Blythe, and say, come on down, we have what to offer?
It requires some form of government intervention. I believe that when we have these economic development programs in the state of California.
What is an economic development program?
Well, they are incentives. They are tax credits for employees and employees. They are costs that could be taken from your manufacturing equipments that you need and given an incentive to reduce the investments that you need to make. At the same time, it's regions working together to highlight why people should come to their area. It may be because of the inexpensive cost of land, the inexpensive utility costs, or in today's world, and in California, extremely important is because you have water, right? Far more important than any of those is that you have a labor force that has the skill sets that align with the type of investments and businesses, jobs that you're trying to bring to a region. So I'm working on policies where the state takes a look at these areas of California that continue to see double digits in unemployment, saying that needs to be our priority. That no part of California should have double-digit unemployment rates that attribute to poverty levels increasing, and that we should be looking out for every corner of the state, inland California, as opposed to just coastal California, where they don't have the same challenges that we do.
Right.
And so my job is to make that case as the representative of this area,
and bring the money back.
And bring the resources here.
Let me see if I can bring this home just a little bit. Because right now we're going to talk mainly about Coachella and the Coachella Valley. We'll do another program down in El Centro, and we'll go over to Blythe. And we'll get this done over the next several months so that we are represented totally. Now, I'm about to announce, because we have come a long way. Back in, I have your letter here. It was December 10th, 2013. You sent me a letter because you and I chatted. I said, listen, there's a project I'm going to be doing for veterans, and I want to bring more jobs to your high school graduates, and I'm considering doing it in the city of Coachella. And you wrote me a very nice letter and said, come on down.
Yeah.
Well, it took me a while, but let's see, this was 2013. Well, this year, 2016, on January 20, I think it was the 27th, I bought a piece of property on Interstate 10, just east of Dillon, and we have 17 acres.
Fantastic.
And I'm working very closely. I know you set the city in a motion, in a direction when you were councilman and mayor. I watched the changes you made, and the reason why I came here for this very important project was because of the stability of your city government, and now the stability of the Coachella Valley Unified School District under Dr. Adams. The change between before Dr. Adams is night and day, and the change between before you and your current council now is night and day. It is fabulous, the things that you all have accomplished. So you invited me down, and between Mark Weber, who is your Economic Development Director, who came on board just as I was asking you for this.
That's right.
I didn't ask for anything. I just wanted to know if you wanted us here. And then, of course, Louis Lopez, who is the development director. So between these two gentlemen, and now your current mayor, Stephen Hernandez, and Emmanuel, and the other council members, I could not have asked for any more or any better cooperation in bringing a business. Now, even though we're going to be a nonprofit, I'm still a business.
That's right.
And I'm not going to be asking for any special favors. We're going to bring jobs and a lot of construction and a lot of jobs, and we're going to start with veterans and your high school graduates and your citizens. So you have laid the groundwork for someone like me to come in and build a $10 million facility. But I knew what I wanted. I didn't need any tax incentives. I don't want any special favors from the city. I don't need any tax credits because we're a nonprofit. So, I mean, if you're determined to set a business up here, it seems to me that you've laid the groundwork for everybody to welcome you and cooperate fully.
Well, thank you for those kind words.
Well, no, they're not kind, it's a fact.
Well, I appreciate you highlighting that. We worked really hard to make sure that the city of Coachella put together a business plan, and at the core principle of it being that we're open for business.
You are.
And that we have the necessary stability at all levels of our governance structure, whether it be the elected body or our administrators.
They're fabulous. They're absolutely fabulous.
Add the level of confidence, right, to those looking to invest and help us meet our objectives when it comes to creating jobs, expanding our tax base, and ultimately being able to deliver to our constituents a good quality of life via the services that we were able to provide. And so I'm glad that you continued to pursue the vision. I was very glad that we were able to support that concept.
You have from day one.
It's gone from a concept to a real project, and I'm actually excited to hear that.
Well, you'll hear more about it later. You know, the one thing I swore I would never do, and that is announce something before it was a done deal. Now, even though we've got the land, even though my lobbyist in Washington is getting the funding, even though all these things are happening, until I have what is known as a pre-approval from Louis Lopez's department and the Planning Commission, I'm not making any announcements.
Correct.
I mean, you follow the rules.
Sure.
But every time I needed a question answered, and this is for people who are thinking about bringing their business here or starting a business here. When you pick up the phone to call the development director, Mark Weber, he will call you back. When you call Louis Lopez, the development director, he will call you back. That's what made the difference. When I had the simplest little question, like, I had no idea what I was doing when it came to certain things. I don't do committees. Rules are a little bit off base for me, so I knew I would have to bring things to a way of doing business here that I had never done before, which is simply follow the rules. Sure. Thanks to them, they were able to explain things to me, help me along the way, and because of that, I'm sitting on a $2 million piece of property that if it wasn't for you all, I wouldn't have. Now, you didn't give me any money, didn't give me any help there, but you gave me the foundation of answers that are so important to business.
Patty,
you guys have got it. I mean, it's hands down, this is where people belong.
And we take that same logic to the decision-making process now at the state level. Mindful I'm one of 80 in the Assembly, one of 40 on the Senate side, right? And then, of course, we have a governor, right, who approves or disapproves of our initiatives. But it's that same concept, right, that same model that we take up, understanding what our barriers have been to attract investment in Coachella. And we see the same case throughout the state. There are many other Coachellas in the Central Valley, right? We talk about, in my district, in Imperial Valley. We talk about the San Joaquin Valley. And many other parts all the way up to the Redding area that have very similar circumstances where their challenge is attracting investment in order to create jobs. And so I'm asking the Governor's Office of Economic Development to make these areas a priority. And we're making some headway.
How's that going?
We're making some headway. We're making some headway because...
I mean, does the governor really care about these relatively small communities outside of the big voting of Los Angeles and Sacramento and San Francisco? Does this guy care?
I believe he does.
Really?
I believe he does, and I want to just say that I also believe that he's done a fair job governing the state of California and taking us out of a huge budgetary deficit, and also leading the way in making sure that responsible decisions were made to get us balanced. And today the state of California has a very different financial outlook than it did when he took office. I believe he cares. What we need to do is continuously remind him about how much he cares and how much we care about making sure that there aren't two tales being told in California, that of the haves and the have-nots, and that there is something to be said that when you have a county or counties with 21% unemployment, that there's something that we're not doing right.
The other thing here, now it's no secret to you, and over the years I've been in broadcasting and I talk to businessmen and businesswomen, California is the kill a business with regulation. You want to do business in California? Are you nuts?
Yeah.
Now, I don't have all those regulatory problems because I'm going to be dealing with veterans, and it's a whole different ballgame than if I was starting a manufacturing plant.
That's right.
A manufacturing facility will be part of the spin-off of this.
Sure.
But California makes it awfully hard, Eduardo, for business to do business. I mean, every time you turn around, there's a new regulation, there's a new problem, there's a new this, there's a new form to fill out. I mean, it's unending. Is there any chance of cleaning up this little bit of this regulatory mess?
Absolutely. And it doesn't happen in one legislative year or possibly two. But I'll tell you that of the 26 bills that have come before my committee that I chair, the Jobs, Economic Development, and the Economy job, of the 26 bills, 7 of them have had to deal with the procurement process as well as the regulatory process. And the goal there being to try to consolidate some of those efforts, to try to create, as we would in a city, a one-stop shop counter.
Like you have now in Coachella.
Correct.
Where I go to the development director's department, Louis Lopez, and I don't have to run around to 5 different places to get one form filled out.
That's correct.
Okay.
And so taking that same concept, and it isn't my concept, I didn't come up with the idea, it is a concept that's been discussed and talked about by many other legislators who feel that there is a lot of duplication and redundancy when it comes to starting a business in California, or for that matter, growing your business in California. Mm-hmm. Now, one thing that we have noticed is that although we've had some companies leave California for the reasons that we're discussing, we've had other companies be created in California as a result of our priorities when it comes to our public policies. For example, the backbone of our economies, our agriculture, but also the innovation technology industry, right, is what's taken off and created jobs, mindful not throughout the entire state of California, but we're so dependent on the innovative and technology economy that people have come to California because of our climate change policies, wanting to build the necessary technology to meet some of our goals of reducing emissions in the air. Mm-hmm. And so there have been some positive outcomes as a result of some of the regulations, but I think that there's a lot more we can do to decrease redundancy, duplication, and ultimately the cost to doing business in California.
It can be extraordinary. I know that I had the engineers out to the property, and I got an estimate of the infrastructure alone that it's going to cost me to just bring across the street just 45 feet the sewer and the water, power. I'm looking at a couple $1 million here. It's an expensive proposition to put something on a piece of property that wasn't there before.
That's right.
And anyway, your city that you have helped stabilize enormously, and now Stephen Hernandez and everyone, it's just, I cannot say enough. If you're a business thinking about locating, let me tell you something, come on down to Coachella. There's an incredible future here. Now let's talk about my other favorite subject, the Salton Sea. When I first started my television programming back here in California in 1992, I did television shows and radio shows about the Salton Sea. It has been one wasted $1 million study after another. You've had so many heads of the Salton Sea Commission that got nothing done, nothing happened. It's been a joke. I've watched it. You've watched it. Now, I happen to have, back in the early 80s, I went fishing in the Salton Sea. That's a corvina. I caught that. So, needless to say, I like to fish. But I haven't been down there in 20 years. The other thing that few people don't understand, and this is kind of fascinating because when I was walking the property I bought on I-10, you, as a kid growing up, you knew about these.
Sure.
These are seashells. And they're found all over the Coachella Valley. In fact, when I was living in Rancho Mirage and I would hike up into the mountains in the Cove, they're on the hills behind Rancho Mirage.
That's right.
Now, a lot of people don't understand that, you know, these are all over the place. And I had my engineer who brought his son out, MSA Engineering, a gentleman by the name of Mike Rowe is the head of engineering over there. And Mike brought his son out because he didn't believe that we had seashells in the Coachella Valley.
Yeah.
So
in Spanish, conchas.
Conchas. But your assistant up front gave this to me because I showed him my seashells. I'm fascinated by these seashells.
Sure.
Folks. I'm just fascinated by the whole thing because you walk onto the ground, there's seashells all over the place. When developers started laying the town site in what is now the city of Coachella, they originally proposed the name of Conchilla. Conchilla. My Spanish is not very good. In fact, I have no Spanish. Conchilla, from the Spanish meaning of little shells, just like those.
That's right.
Or land of little shells, named for all the little shells found in the area. This name was agreed upon, and then when the developers formally laid out the town site in 1901, they sent the prospectus to the printers, but it came back because the printers thought it was a misspelling, so instead of Conchilla, it came back Coachella.
Huh?
So there's a little history lesson. Now, I read recently that you received how much money to study or do something with the Salton Sea again? How much money did you get to pour down that rat hole again?
We have $80 million that are set forward to actually begin building habitat restoration projects.
Not for another study.
Absolutely not.
No more studies?
Nope, no more studies. And that's the governor's commitment in this budget. Myself and State Senator Ben Wessel, who represents the southern part of the Salton Sea, Imperial County, who, by the way, I worked for prior to being elected to this role, we've actually turned around and asked the governor's office for an even $100 million.
Okay. Now, let's go this a minute, okay? I'd like to be able to go back and fish again.
And we want you to.
No, I really do.
And
because,
boat?
And boat, well, really fish. But, you know, if you've ever been out to the Salton Sea in the crack of dawn, it's like a moonscape. It is truly a magnificent sight, not only at sunrise, but at sunset, because when you see the mountains that surround it and that come down to the shores, it is really beautiful.
It is.
And you got us $80 million, and you're going to restore what? What are you going to do? We need fresh water.
We're going to build habitat restoration ponds in the area that have already dried up. And the priority of those...
Where's the water coming from?
Well, the water is going to come from the... you have the New River, and you have what I believe is the American River that flow into the Salton Sea. We also have a commitment of $20 million from the governor's office to restore the water quality coming from the New River, which will ultimately end up in the Salton Sea as the water that we will be utilizing to make sure that we build this habitat.
Let's talk about the one solution that I heard about back in the early 90s, that you know about, that you and I had a little conversation about, that I think, and many other people think, I'm not alone here, I think it's the solution. And every time I mention it to somebody, they say, oh no, Mexico will never go for that. They won't cooperate. The easiest way to get salt water into the Salton Sea is to dig a trench. We're 200 feet below sea level in the Salton Sea. Dig a trench from the Sea of Cortez.
Right.
Mexico's here, Texas is here, right? Know a little bit about my geography. So you have the Sea of Cortez in the middle. Dig a trench from there, across the border to here. Water will flow downhill, and you've got fresh salt sea. Well, salts. You have fresh ocean water in the Salton Sea, which is what you want. What's wrong with that picture?
Well, I think for a lot of people, the concept is certainly something that seems very practical.
It does.
You have government officials on the Mexican side of the border, along with tribal entities from the Mexican side of the border, who have already aligned the necessary efforts, requirements, and in some instances even the blessings.
Yeah, when I talk to people, they say Mexico will never do that. You're never ever going to get Mexico to cooperate with.
Well, there are parts of Mexico that also have a water drought problem, and they also see that access to the Sea of Cortez as a possible solution. Now, mindful, right? It will require other technologies to ensure that it isn't just bringing salt water into a very salt body of water, which is the Salton Sea.
Well, the Salton Sea is more salty than the salt water in the oceans.
25-30% time.
Right, so if you bring the salt water in from the Sea of Cortez, you will level it out, will you not?
Well, the question is, do we do that? Or are we increasing the levels of salinity by bringing in saltier water from the Sea of Cortez?
It's not as salty as you've got now.
Well, salty plus salty might equal saltier. And that's part of the problem with the ecology or the ecological
Do you
impacts.
have a fix?
We have a fix to address the air quality issues and the habitat issues right now.
Okay.
And those projects have been put forward by Assembly Bill 1095 that I authored, where at the end of March, the natural resources.
2015?
Yep.
Okay.
The 2016.
2016.
At the end of this month, March, and we've received that packet of information. We wanted a list of those projects, and we believe the state has a responsibility in taking some leadership role on this issue, and so those projects have come out. We're asking the governor to increase his allocation of $80 to $100 billion and $100 million,
right,
and begin the construction of those projects. One thing that I should note.
I understand fixing up the habitats. I understand that part. Where are we going to get the water if we don't bring it in from the Sea of Cortez? Just dig this little trench. What is so complicated about digging this little trench?
Yeah, international water laws.
Are we on the way to overcoming any of these issues?
I don't know that we're there yet. I think that right now the focus, because of the last 2 years' efforts by our locals and the cooperation of the state, and really a different engagement coming from the state of California. I'd like to believe it's, the driving force has been our local communities and stakeholders, and with the assistance of our legislative representatives putting pressure on these agencies that have some responsibility, that we're now seeing a different attitude to address the problem. $80 million has never been a price tag or a commitment that's been made by the state of California.
Okay. The one thing I'm going to hand you on this issue, we're going to talk about this a lot in the future, is that you did get the money to do something other than do another study.
Yeah,
this thing has been studied to death.
And look, and I would love to take all the credit for it, and I will take some credit for it. But what I'll say is that without a collective effort that has stemmed from our local communities, our water agencies, our activists, our environmentalists, and everyone who sees the implications of nothing being done there, the impacts to our air quality, the impacts to our economy, right? I mean, that's a story that we've heard, that we've talked about. Well, now I can tell you that we can begin to change the narrative, that at least from a state standpoint and the federal government, who, by the way, has funded the first project out there, Red Hill Bay Marina Project, that we're now talking to one another, and that we're now funding some low-hanging fruit projects that are going to protect the habitat and the air quality of the people that live there, and of course the impacts that it could have further down valley.
Okay, and you're still going to work on getting that water from the Sea of Cortez.
We're going to work on a long-term solution that I believe now I can begin to focus on, whether it be connecting to the Sea of Cortez, where we may be able to build some consensus around, or utilizing the technology that is out there, the desalinization, along with finding a way to integrate California's aggressive energy policies and making sure that there is a seat at the table for renewable energy projects out in the area. And at the same time, taking advantage of a bad situation that happens to be our water drought circumstances, and figure out a way that if in California there needs to be a different way on how we do business when it comes to water, that we integrate it into this overall project that we're talking about. That requires a significant amount of water to mitigate the impacts.
Let's set a time to go to Calexico with you one day.